In North Africa, the head of Algeria's police has been dismissed as a result of a decree from President Abdelaziz Bouteflika. General Abdel Ghani Hamel had been Director General of National Security Forces since 2010. He was seen as a possible successor to the 81-year-old head of state. No reason were given for his dismissal. Meanwhile, the police have denied media reports that General Hamel's personal driver was involved in smuggling cocaine. A number of other Algerian officials have been caught up in the drug trafficking scandal. A court in the Democratic Republic of Congo has begun the trial of one of the country's main opposition leaders, Moise Katumbi, who is accused of recruiting mercenaries back in 2015. Mr. Katumbi and 6 others, including an American national, face charges of attempting to destabilize the country. The businessman and former governor of southern Katanga province has been tried in absentia. He has been living in self-imposed exile for 2 years. On Tuesday, Mr. Katumbi told reporters that he intends to return to DR Congo within 2 months to file his nomination for the December presidential elections. The tycoon, who also owns TP Mazembe Football Club, is involved in several other cases in the country. He was recently detained briefly at Brussels airport because of an issue with his passport. Mr. Katumbi later said authorities in DR Congo had cancelled his Congolese passport. Nigeria has overtaken India as the country with the largest number of people living in extreme poverty, with an estimated 87 million Nigerians, or around half of the country's population, thought to be living on less than $2 a day. The findings, based on a projection by the World Poverty Clock and compiled by Brookings Institute, shows that more than 643 million people across the world live in extreme poverty, with Africans accounting for about 2/3 of the total number. But while the number of Nigerians falling into extreme poverty grows by roughly 6 people every minute, poverty in India continues to decrease at present. An estimated 5.3% of Indians, or 71.5 million people, live below the poverty line. Bangladesh and Indonesia are the only other non-African nations to feature among the list of 10 worst affected countries, with an estimated 17 million and 14.2 million people living in extreme poverty, respectively. Let's get more on the story from one of the authors of the report, Christopher Hamel, Chief Operating Officer, World Data Lab. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
So could you explain further the dynamics of extreme poverty that puts Nigeria at #1 in the world, ahead of India and even DR Congo?
Certainly. So here it's important to distinguish that there are, in fact, many dimensions of poverty. Access to clean water, sanitation, access to quality education, access to proper nutrition. And all of these contribute to a multi-dimensional approach to poverty. But with respect to our project, we were looking at just one indicator, which is the number of people living on less than $1.90 a day, which is an indicator that which was approved by the United Nations in 2015 when they created the Sustainable Development Agenda. So by that measure, we forecast that between now and 2030, Nigeria will continue to see a rise in the total number of people living on less than $1.90 a day. Today, it's about 87 million, and we project that by at least by 2022, that'll rise to 100 million and continue to increase. But of course, if we were to look at other indicators, again, related to access to infrastructure, let's say, or education, or nutrition, Nigeria would very likely occupy a different position. So we have to take that in mind when we're considering the whole aspect, the multidimensional aspect of poverty. This is just one indicator among many.
So based on your research, why is it becoming difficult to achieve the Sustainable Development Goal 1 of ending poverty in Africa?
So it's hard to generalize about Africa because it's so diverse. It includes so many countries that have such different experiences. And according to our data, in fact, some countries will close the gap and will essentially eradicate extreme poverty. Some African countries will do that in 2030. But beyond the diversity issue, from our point of view, this project's point of view, the World Poverty Clock, what we're interested in doing is democratizing the data. That is, we want to make the best income and demographic forecasts possible, and then make that information available to as many people as possible so that we can have exactly these kinds of conversations. Because if the general public isn't informed and policymakers aren't necessarily informed with the best information possible, then it's difficult for action to take place. And so from our side, we've been very impressed and happy to see the amount of discussion that's taken place just since our article went live last week. It certainly bodes well for being able to change the situation.
The Nigerian government is likely to argue with your report, saying that efforts have been and are being made to fight poverty, to reposition the economy, to fight graft and repatriate looted funds, among other things. What suggestions could you offer as to how Nigeria can meet that goal before 2030?
So I think from World Data Lab's point of view, and from the point of view of this project, what we can really offer is to try to find champions and partners in Nigeria that are interested in working with us to map poverty at a very granular level. And if you go to our World Poverty Clock project at worldpoverty.io, you'll see that we've mapped the incidence of poverty in Kenya at the county level. And if you look at that tool, you'll see that it's very compelling. Very quickly, you can get a sense of exactly where the pockets of poverty are currently in Kenya and where they'll be in 12 years' time. And with that information, you can then make very reasonable decisions about what sorts of policies to create, what sorts of development projects to support. So our suggestion, our hope in the Nigerian context is that we can find partners that would be willing to work with us so we can do this same exercise in Nigeria, and to do it at the provincial level, but even better perhaps at the municipal level, even the district level, so that we can really have the best possible information about where poverty is being experienced so that we can then design interventions to solve the problem.
Finally, Christopher, your report says extreme poverty in Nigeria is growing by 6 people every minute, while poverty in India continues to fall. What steps did India take to record this improvement?
Right. So what we're seeing in India is the culmination of a more than 40-year experience that started with the Green Revolution in the 1970s, which supported agricultural research and agricultural productivity, to a broader liberalization agenda that's happened more recently. But taken together, this effort has culminated in GDP growth rates over the last 10 years that have been between 6 to 8%. And over the last 20 years that have been at least 4%, if not higher. So with this extremely increased level of economic activity, it's perhaps intuitive to see how a rising tide would lift all boats and would quickly lead to a place where extreme poverty in India is falling rapidly. Since 2016, they've halved the number of people living in extreme poverty, and we predict that soon after 2020, about 2021, they will have made the number of people living under $1.90 a day be less than 3% of their population.
Okay, Christopher Hamel, Chief Operating Officer, World Data Lab, thank you so much for joining us on Network Africa. Still to come on the program, Ethiopian Airlines will restart flights to Eritrea for the first time in 20 years. Please stay with us.